essential to our well-being, but even something so important to us is wrought with pitfalls. While dreams can be exciting, enlightening, abstract, and often thought-provoking, there is the other side to dreaming, the terror of nightmares, the dark side of the subconscious. On this episode, we explore what nightmares are and where they come from. Why do we experience them, and why do they stay with us for so long? We find out here on today's episode of Bite Me. Welcome, my friends, another episode of Bite Me. I am Chris Gordon, and I am joined today by our producer, Danny J. for DJB Productions.
How are you?
And we're going to be talking about something that a lot of our shows are based on belief or speculation. Mm-hmm. But this topic is a fact. It's undisputed. Nightmares, they happen. They're a real thing. So we're going to be talking about nightmares today. Danny and I are going to go into the dark side of our subconscious. So, Danny, I'm interested in your nightmare about vegetables.
Yeah, I have one. I have a recurring dream. I haven't had it in years. I literally haven't had it in years. But I can tell you I've had it in my lifetime minimally about 6 times. So
same
that's
dream. Same nightmare.
Exact dream in the same exact order. And the same exact thing happened. So, and for it to happen from a young age through being older, it's going to open up a lot of questions as to why would this happen. It's going to sound funny at first because it turns into a funny dream, but it's going to be something where you're like, let's analyze this because it's going to tell us stuff about our psyche. Okay.
Right.
I have this dream where, you know how when you're in a dream, everything is automatic knowledge. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to sit there. It's not like when you watch a movie and you're like in a dream, you're like looking around like, oh, where am I at? What am I like? They're becoming self-aware. That's not the way dreams work. When you're in a dream, you're automatically in doing whatever you're doing. You know what I mean? Like there is no self-aware in most dreams. So you already know what's happening. There's assumed knowledge, and it's almost like you're watching it on a television. You know when you pick up a TV show and it already started? It's kind of like that in a sense. A lot of my dreams are like that, where I pick it up and it's like, all right, I know what's going on. Let me watch this and see what happens, type of thing.
Kind of fills in the gaps.
It really does. And in this particular dream, it's very scary, actually. It starts off, I'm in a cornfield. And I've never been in a cornfield. I've seen cornfields on TV. That's about the extent of my knowledge of cornfields. But I'm in this high cornfield brush.
Okay.
And the common knowledge is, and think about this for a second, this is fucking scary, is that scarecrows have come down off the stalks.
Okay.
And they're going after people. And they're attacking people. So you have scarecrows running through cornfields, grabbing you and attacking you. And everybody's running for their lives, right? So you're dropped right in the middle of this. It's like being like when you're airdropped into a middle of a battlefield. You're like, whoa, like that. So I start running, and the anxiety is such a high level, almost at the jump, that I'm like, oh, scarecrows are coming in. I gotta get the hell out of here. Run. And I'm running. And I come to a clearing out of the cornfield, and there's like a hill, and there's a little, like an old general store, right? Think like Old West, like you said, like a trading post type of thing. And I go inside the store, and the only light in here, because it's daytime, it's kind of like, when like a storm happens and the skies are like super kind of like, it's not nighttime, but it's dark.
Yeah.
That's the way it is in the beginning.
Yeah, it's like an ominous, right? It's an
very ominous, like very gray, dark gray.
Right.
When I get into the store, imagine the store is all wood, and they have a lot of windows, and now it's real bright. So the whole store is not lit up, but the windows are lit up in a sense. You know what I mean? And so I'm walking through the store, and there's nobody in the store. And I come to a Frigidaire refrigerator. So imagine a big white ice box.
Okay.
Right? And I open up this ice box, and there's only like like they have the graded shelves, like the old
Yeah.
school, like the metal shelves. And I swear to God, there are vegetables in there, and they're Muppets. Imagine like if you made a Muppet of like a vegetable, and it has a mouth and eyes, and they're going like this. They're dancing back and forth, and they're singing something. I don't know what they're singing. I can never hear the song, but they're literally like there's like there's a cucumber, there's an orange, there's a potato, there's a salad, like a head of lettuce, and they're just going back and they're da, 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 and they're dancing, and then I wake up. So, and I've had that 6 times in my lifetime.
So you always wake up with the singing vegetables.
I always wake up with the singing vegetables.
So,
And-
okay.
It's
So-
fucked up. I know. Yeah.
I'm actually trying to psychoanalyze this right now.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because it's the scarecrow factor that
Mhm.
actually
Yeah.
is instilling this terror, and then singing vegetables, which it's interesting that that's when you wake up, because it seems
Yeah.
like that would be the most terrifying part of the dream. But it seems like that would be the comic relief of the dream, where like, oh,
Yeah.
vegetables, and they
The
sing
way
and
I-
dance.
Over time of like the first time you get, you're like, wow, what a fucking dream that was, right? And then after that, you have it a second time, like, oh, I had that dream again. And then the third, the fourth, the fifth time, you're like, now like this is a story to tell because I keep having this dream, and you don't know why or whatever. But over time of having the dream and really like me talking about it and stuff like that to friends and all, I kind of analyze it in the sense of the intensity in the beginning is super intense. And it's almost like my mind takes me to the store, which you remember I go back to the beginning where I said it's like inherited knowledge.
Yeah,
The general store is Mr. Wimple's store on
Mr.
fucking Sesame Street.
Remember
Mr. Wimple on Sesame
I
Street?
remember Mr.
Right?
Wimple. Yeah.
Because now that incorporates the Muppets and shit like that. It's almost like this was a pressure valve. Like, imagine a radiator is about to explode, and you
Right.
screw the valve and it releases, and then the shit comes back down like this.
Yeah.
It's almost like that's like a pressure valve for my brain, because maybe I was getting to a point where it's like, oh my God, you're gonna like stroke out,
Yeah.
from this anxiety. Let me bring it
I
down.
see that. That makes sense. I
Yeah.
think I've heard
Yeah.
that the human mind can only will only
Take so much.
remember so
Mhm.
much.
Yeah.
Everyone's different. Everyone has a different threshold for what they'll
Mhm.
take in. That's why people who are in horrific accidents don't remember a lot of
Right.
the
Mhm.
things that happen. And I think nightmares might work the same way. It takes you to a threshold, and then you wake up. How old were you when you had that
Now-
dream?
When I first had that dream, I had to be, and understand too, although I've watched Sesame Street as a kid, I did not watch Sesame Street as religiously, because I'm an odd person. I used to watch talk shows when I was a kid.
Okay.
Growing up in the 70s and the 80s,
Mhm.
I watched Merv Griffin, I watched Johnny Carson,
Nice.
and I was the type of kid that I did not like, and I was always a mature kid. So I would watch Sesame Street, but I would lose interest very quickly. When I watched the talk show, my mom always said, she asked, why do you like watching talk shows? And I said, because the guy's talking to me, because they're talking into the camera.
Yeah.
So I associated that the guy's talking to me directly. So I'm
Oh,
like,
I
okay,
see. Yeah.
like this. And she said
Got
that
it.
she always laughed at that. She said that she was always referred to me as my Danny. My Danny always thinks that the talk show host is talking to him directly. So he likes to watch talk shows.
Right.
'Cause I used to watch Merv Griffin. I used to watch all that shit.
Carson was so good at that too, though.
Oh, really? And I used to love Carson because see, my father worked 3 jobs when
Right.
I was young. So when he would get in like 11:30 at night,
Right.
so I would stay up as a child. I would stay up for him to come in, and then watch a little bit of TV with him before I went to bed. So I from a small child never slept because I wanted to see my dad and stuff like
Right,
that and
right.
that type of thing. So I got into that habit. So I got very, very acquainted with late night talk shows and stuff like that. So the basis of that diversion is because I was not a religious Sesame Street person, but I knew it existed. I watched the
Right.
Muppet Show, in the late 70s, early 80s. I watched
Oh
the
yeah,
Muppet
love
Show.
that show. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
I
was
did
great.
too.
Kermit the Frog
Which
goes
was once-
solo with his own show.
Right, which
It's
was
awesome.
not for nothing, was a more of adult show. The Muppet
Yeah,
Show.
well, it was. Oh, it was
It-
brilliantly written.
Yeah, and so it goes
Brilliantly
back to
written.
once again, I was bored with child stuff. I wanted more input in a sense.
Right.
So I guess I was maybe 8 years old. So
Okay.
it seems kind of late in life. You know what I mean? Like I would have something like that. By 8 years old, I am not watching Sesame Street at all.
Right.
You know, the Muppet Show's not on the air. You know what I mean? This is all just knowledge in my head that I
But
have.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
That type of thing.
It's in your subconscious, right? It's there. You know.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where I guess, I mean, as a kid, I never had anxiety. I don't have anxiety now. Do I feel pressure at times? Sure. But I mean, everybody does. Something's not going right at work. If something's not going right with this network, my DJB Productions network, if something's not going right with a show, dealing with talent and stuff like that. And, I feel that kind of pressure and I've learned to deal with it. And and that's the kind of person that I personally am. I don't claim to be better or worse than somebody else. It's just that my personality traits tend to make me go this direction with something
Right.
where somebody else might go like this. My wife, full of anxiety, gets anxious about a lot of stuff. I don't, and it's just, that's her and this is me. But it's funny because a lot of my dreams, and understand as a 46-year-old male, I watch cartoons religiously, preferable over live action television. I watch cartoons. So I'm a child at heart. I love toys, although I don't play with them anymore. I love toys. I love action figures. And the reason I don't play with them is just because I don't have access to do it anymore. Otherwise, I would. At 46 years old, I would have my action figures out and stuff like that. I'm a kid at heart in that sense. But the funny thing is that my dreams in general always tend to be me being on my home street where I grew up, or I'm in school, believe it or not in a class, but like on my way to class. Like, you walk from one classroom to the other and you're in the hallways and you're just kind of paying attention to all the kids around you. I'm always in a school. And if I'm not in a school, I'm in a mall. Like, remember when you were a kid and you went to the mall and Sam Goody and merry-go-round and all these, these brightly lit stores around. And this is all stuff that happened as a child or as a teenager. And I always revert back to that in my dreams. And I'm not sure if it's because I do so much and that's my brain bringing me down. I kind of assessed it that that's what it is. That's a much more fond. I'm more fond of that time than I am of today, in a sense.
I see.
So I find that like my brain works in that fashion. I think I honestly have these pressure valves that bring me down so that way I can get on with my next day, in a sense.
Right.
Tell me about your Muppet dreams.
There was a dream I had, and it's categorized as a nightmare. I remember growing up, and it was my older sister's favorite nightmare story of mine.
Right.
And I have no idea where this came from, for some reason, I don't know why it's the one nightmare I remember, but very young, I was still in Catholic school at the time. And at the end of the hallway of the school, this in my dream, though the school was mapped out exactly the way it was in real life.
Right.
I'm walking down the hall, and they had I think it was at one point in the day, they would sell soft pretzels and milk. So I'm walking down the hall to get there, and I turn the corner, and behind the concession stand, standing upright, is a hippopotamus with lipstick. And that became the joke of the whole dream, the hippopotamus with lipstick. If you remember, do you remember Henrietta Hippo? Old show, going back to the 70s. And there was Freddie the Frog, Henrietta Hippo, and I forget the owl's name, but they were life-size, actors in costumes. Well, there she was. She's wearing a polka dot dress. she's got the lipstick on and she's coming on to me like full on. I'm this little kid and she's chasing me around the school, yelling my name, and it won't stop. And it's, as you said, it was a reoccurring nightmare. Happened 2 or 3 times. And I had to just stop watching the show. I'm like, something's going on here. Henrietta Hippo. It was kind of like the Kermit the Frog and Miss Piggy kind of attraction.
Yeah.
I was freaked out. I'm like, what's going on here? I just wanted a pretzel.
And I think as children, I think we absorb stuff, and I guess we have to process it in our own way. Like you and I are close in the same age, and so we watched a lot of the same stuff. But remember, as kids, the kids today don't know this, but like we only had a few channels. We didn't have a lot of channels.
Yeah.
We didn't have
the 3
cable.
Cable wasn't even
3, 6, 10.
Yep.
Cable, right. And cable was in its infancy as of the 80s,
Yeah.
But
we also had 17 and 29.
And 48. Channel 48 was the
48
back then. Yeah. And the thing was, although we didn't have a lot of channels, my attention span on television shows, you either watched whatever was on television at that time, because you didn't get up and change the channel because there were no remotes back then.
Right,
yeah, people don't realize we didn't have remotes. We had to go up and change the channel.
It was the dial. It was the dial.
Yeah. So like it was one of those things where I might have watched 3 hours of crap before I got my show on. You know what I mean? But I didn't change the channel before that. And I remember, and it's a show I did not watch as a kid, but it was on. It was H&R Puffin stuff, right?
Oh yes.
And it happened to come on, and I never watched it, but I knew it existed, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. And this one episode, this is the only episode I ever watched, and it scared the shit out of me like you wouldn't believe. All I can remember is this kid's on a dock, and the kid's got to goes out on this dock, and he gets onto this boat because and it's real dark and ominous or something like that. And when he gets on this boat, these arms come out of the fucking boat and grab him like this. And the kid's like, it's Raymond. And then it goes to commercial. I turned that TV off. That scared the shit out of me. And I never watched that thing ever again. And I remember that to this day.
I'm wondering if that's where the writers of the original Friday the 13th got the idea for the ending. Right, exactly. When Jason comes out of the water, and that sounds very like, hey, you can just imagine the writers sitting around and go, hey, remember that H&R Puffin stuff episode where let's do that. Let's end the movie with that. That's awesome.
Nobody remembers that show. They won't even know. That's true because it's crazy. But nightmares, I guess, will range based on the person. Like there's a stereotype of nightmares to say something's really scary. It's dark. It's a monster. It's this, it's that, it's nothing. But a nightmare can be classified in anything. It could be you're stuck in a dead end job.
Right.
You married the wrong woman or wrong man, or you're naked at a meeting.
Yeah. The famous doing my book report, all hanging out. Yep.
Yeah. I mean,
that obviously ties in with anxiety. You're anxious about something that, what I've experienced in my later years are not so much nightmares in the sense of, it's actually more like what they call night terrors, where I am conscious of the fact that I know I'm dreaming, but I'm also awake and I cannot move.
Yes.
It happened to me twice. It happened to me here once. It was actually a crazy night. I was in the middle of this night terror. My wife is asleep next to me, and I know I have to move. I have to wake up, but I'm paralyzed. So I'm conscious and still in that state. It's the freakiest feeling. I break out, and as I break out, it's bolt upright. The room is on fire.
Wow.
Smoke. And this is real to me. This is actually happening. I grab my wife, throw her over my shoulder. She's dead asleep. And I just throw her over my shoulder. I'm jumping out of bed and I'm running to my stepdaughter's room. And I'm yelling like crazy. There was no fire. There was no nothing. Everything was fine. I was still like I hadn't quite come out. And the other time it happened was after my dad passed. And I heard him talking to me, but I knew I was dreaming, but I was awake and I tried to move and I couldn't do it. It's happened to me 2 or 3 times. It's like a sleep paralysis or
Yes.
something like that.
Yeah, and
But
I
as you were
actually had that
saying,
thing.
the topic
Mhm.
of the nightmare wasn't something I could write down and say, oh, and somebody would read and go, oh my God, that's terrifying. It was more of just this overwhelming dread
Right.
that
It's
I
almost like a
can't.
pressure. It's a pressure,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
on you. Yeah.
Yep.
I had one dream that was a nightmare, and I only had it one time, but it was so specific that I remember every detail.
Okay.
And I had this easily 20 years ago. Easily 20 years ago. And I remember every detail. Before I lived, I'm in my house now 18 years. And before that, me and my wife were in an apartment. This is before we had our children and all. And in this dream, once again, it goes back to common knowledge. You're sitting in there, something's going on outside. So I'm in my apartment and I go to the window, and outside I see rioting. And there's
Oh,
not
wow.
monsters or anything like that, but it's rioting and cars are on fire and people are trying to break in and kill people, almost like The Purge, right?
Okay.
Like that movie,
Yeah.
The Purge. And I'm like, oh my God, like this is crazy, right?
Wow.
And I'm in the hallway of my apartment building. And I hear banging on the door down there. I'm like, oh my God, we got to get out of here. And I start running down the steps, and the hallway's dark, right? And I'm running down the steps, and I hear that they're starting to come in. And in my ear, I hear my mom's voice saying, calm down, Danny, it's okay.
Hmm.
And then I wake up. So
Wow.
once again, the pressure release valve went off.
Yeah.
It was my mom's voice in my left ear, like as if she was like right there next to me. Like it was
Right.
like she whispered in my ear. Now, and my mom said, calm down, it's okay, everything's fine. And I
Mhm.
woke up. And I never had that dream again. But that was so
Okay.
specific. And it was
Yeah.
so coherent. I was so coherent throughout that entire thing that I was like, wow. Like, to this day, I could not tell you why I would have that dream. I cannot tell you. Because
Right.
I think maybe we adapt and move on, but maybe our subconscious does not. And,
Right.
because you know what I mean? Like, in other words, we could be pressured and not really feel like we're pressured in a sense.
Right. Well, because it's in the subconscious.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I remember being, when I was doing all that touring, there would be days without sleep, and certainly not anything you would consider sleep. And eventually the chemical builds up in the brain, and I can't remember the name of the chemical, but it's the chemical that
Right.
causes you to dream. And
Yeah.
I would start to hallucinate. I would start to see things. And that was, to me, the scariest thing. I was
Mm-hmm.
coming down the road. I hadn't slept, and I'm in the passenger side, and my tech was driving, and I think I had gone 3 days,
Wow.
done a ton of shows, and we were actually finally almost home after all these shows. So we're on 95, coming down 95 South, right by the airport, as a matter of fact. And I'm sitting there in the passenger side, and I look out. It's like 3 a.m, and I see a woman pushing a baby carriage across 95, clear as day. And I let out this scream, stop the car, freaking out. Because there was no one there. There was nothing there. My tech's looking at me like, what's going on?
Right.
And I was palpitating, and I'm like, I got to get home. I got to sleep, man. I got to, and I did. I think I slept for like 2 days straight after that.
Wow.
But yeah. So it builds up, and then
Mhm.
it, as you said, it just releases. And then it's what I like to try to do when I'm in that situation is I try to, once I realize I'm in it, then I try to take it head on. Like,
Yes.
show me what you got. Like, let me, like if I was in a field with a scarecrow, and I never do, if I'm in a situation where I'm having a nightmare, I'm always trying to get out.
Yeah.
But I'm curious as to what would happen if I'd been like, oh yeah, scarecrow. All right, scarecrow, let's see what you got.
Right.
And then like run into the fear, like run at it, or become part of it.
And the funny thing is, like, and I know that they exist where you can, I forget what they call them, but where you can actually, you're dreaming, and you can start to control your actions in the dream.
Yep.
But in most cases, I'm along for the ride.
Yeah.
You know, like, yeah, I'm running. Oh, I gotta fight with this guy. Oh, I gotta go over here. Oh, I'm gonna go fly. You know, whatever the case is. And it's almost like in my subconscious, I'm like, well, this is kind of weird. This guy, and it's like, you know, when you're like in Twilight when you go to surgery, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Like you're like, okay, well, I'm gonna do this. Oh, it's a giraffe. Okay, you know.
The funny thing is, when I'm in a dream where I know I'm dreaming, and there was one that was classified as a nightmare. I was being pursued, and I did that. I knew I was in this dream, and I said, okay, I'm gonna fly. I'm gonna fly out of here, right? But here was the thing, and this is probably very telling on who I am, was that I sucked at it.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like, you know, in a dream, you're like, I'm going to fly, and you're out, you're Superman. But I'm like, I could do it. I could fly, but I had no technique, and I kept landing, and then I had to run again and start. Okay, I'm up. Oh, I have no balance. You know, like all of the technical things that would be realistic to fly, I had problems. You know, and I'm like falling and stuff. Like that's like, even when I'm aware that I'm dreaming and I could do anything, I'm still over analyzing the technique of flying. You know, like
it's funny when you say about flying, because I've done that a couple times in dreams, and each time that I do it, obviously you don't see yourself, like just like our perception right now, we're seeing outward, we don't see our bodies, that type of thing.
Right.
It's a perception where I'm using wings, and I can feel, I can feel, you know, like when you jump off of something and you have that kind of uncertainty about your body.
Yeah.
For a couple seconds or whatever,
right?
Because gravity's no longer affecting you or whatever the case would be. I get that feeling, and I get the feeling of the pressure underneath the wing.
Yeah.
And as I'm going down, and I'm pressure, and I feel that as I'm flying, and every time I do it, it's like I'm flying using wings. And it's the most realistic feeling.
Nice.
You know, it's well, and I kind of like, I really dig when I had those kind of dreams like that, because I'm like, this is just a really cool feeling to have. Now, as far as dreams are concerned, and we're talking about nightmares, but did you ever have a dream, be it scary or slightly off or whatever, affect you when you wake up, affect your entire mood when you wake up?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
I had a dream where I was, as I was saying earlier about, you know, after my dad passed, it affected me so much that when I was able to finally move and get up and move around, I started to get dressed, got to my front door because I was going to my dad's house. And it wasn't until I was walking to my car that I realized, what am I doing? My dad passed 6 months ago. You know?
Right.
And it affected my whole day. I've had dreams where I've woken up and the entire day feels different. I'm not even going to say negative or positive, just different. Like the whole day feels, and even my interactions with people are affected. You know,
I was easily between 8 and 10 years old, and this is a really weird, not weird, but it's an interesting dream that did affect me in a blase negative way when I woke up. Now, at 8 to 10 years old, what the fuck do I have to be worried about or whatever the case is, right? You know what I mean? Because I'm a kid. In this dream, I'm at a camp, and it doesn't really matter what the camp, because the activities or anything that's happening, you just know you're there. I'm in a camp where there's woods and blah, 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 right? And I meet this girl. I meet a girl. And she's a blonde girl, and she's my age. You know, it's a girl, and I start hanging with her, and I start having feelings for this girl. You know, around 10, I guess I was around 10, because that was when I was starting to really get interested in girls and stuff like that. And I started having feelings for this girl. Now, nothing happens. I don't kiss this girl in this dream or anything like that, but I'm starting to have strong feelings for this girl, like she would be my girlfriend. And we're having a great time at this camp, and we're spending time together and all this stuff. And then I wake up, and I kind of like you said, I didn't know what was going on for a second. And I'm in my room, and I realized that girl did not exist.
Right. I see where you're going.
And And now I'm 46 years old. I remember this like it was yesterday.
Right.
That threw me off the entire day. I felt sad. I literally
Right.
felt sad that I lost this girl who did not exist in the first place. That's how
Yeah,
strong
right.
the feelings were.
Yeah.
And that was like a really weird thing. And it was a negative reaction to a dream. So in a sense, it was a nightmare because when I woke up, this joy was taken away from me. This excitement was just taken away from me. And that was the real nightmare because in reality, it wasn't real. You know what I mean? So that I had to live the nightmare that you know what I mean, in that case. Now, obviously I got over it, but you know, still. But that was a weird thing to have that happen because it was, as a child, what do you process when you like a girl?
Right.
I like you. That's it.
Yeah.
You're my whole world now. We'll live with my
Right.
mother. It's like, it's
Yeah, exactly. Right.
you know, it's what you do. You know.
I hear you. Nice.
But our brain, I think, is so crazy, and that's why I think we haven't even tipped the iceberg with the studies of the brain. I mean, granted, we only use 10% of our brain.
Right.
Now, my daughter, my oldest daughter, as you know, she's autistic, and I honestly think that they also use 10% of their brain, but I think they use a different part of the brain. Like instead of it being 1, 2, 3, it's 1, 2, 4 or something, you know, in that analogy. And they think differently than we do. And, you know, or potentially there's, instead of 10%, they're 11%.
Right.
Because my daughter is like a computer. She'll remember things from 10 years ago and say, remember when this, and she'll give you details. You're like, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. You know what I mean? But she remembers everything like that, almost like a computer.
Right.
So I kind of think our brain, it's a shame because our brain is like nowhere near the potential it is.
Right.
Our comrade on this show, Lily Hernandez, who's very, very intelligent, I think she would mirror the thing that like the brain is such an amazing thing that, you know, you can learn. And the funny thing is, I could teach you stuff and you might not retain it.
Right.
Or I could teach you stuff and you might retain everything.
Yeah.
She's the kind of person, she said, she can take complex solutions or analogies or whatever, and she deciphers them very, very quickly. That's her brain capacity, that type of thing. I'm kind of like that. I'm a logic-based person. Sometimes it eludes me, you know. So it's a weird thing with the brain, and I think these nightmares or these dreams. Now, granted, they say dream is the brain working off the energy that it has left from the day, and it's got to process it in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
But it's just amazing how the brain is taking feelings, which feelings I think have to be a brain function.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's all a brain function. So in some way, shape, or form, it's working out something. To expend energy, and you know, it's just so amazing how these things work. And you know, I mean, what scares you? Literally, if you had to break it down and say what scares you, what does scare you?
I don't know. As far as fear goes, I guess it's. I guess the loneliness isn't the word. It's this fear of. I guess it's a fear of being alone in a situation, you know, in situations where you don't have, you're completely alone.
Yes.
You know, I think that's, you know, where you're left completely to your own devices. I guess that's what it is. Yeah.
I mean, for me, I don't like clowns. Just straight up.
Oh yeah. Well, clowns are.
Clowns are horrible. I don't like them, and that's as it is. Yeah. But I can mirror what you're saying. It's like when you are left to not have any kind of bounce back or support in any way, and it's on whatever the situation is. It is on you to make a decision.
Right.
Yeah, I can see that. I could definitely see something like that. And
I
that's
think
built
that's.
in anxiety.
I think my fear is because I second guess
Okay.
myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, choices and in terms of just even just basic stuff. You know, oh, am I
Yeah.
gonna? Is that the track I'm gonna keep? I don't know. You know, I
Right.
you know having that feedback has been is always good for
I
me.
guess my greatest fear when I break it down is death. And not death in the fact that you would think. Not my own death. When the time comes, it comes, and that's it. It's what it is. I think it kind of mirrors what you were just saying, but the loss of others, the loss of loved ones, that type of thing, and the permanent status of I will never see this person again. Like,
Yeah.
and I'll give you an example, and it's such a morbid thing, but like, let's say we didn't do this show anymore, and I know you, and then you move to Seattle, Washington, okay, and you're not on social media anymore. To me, in my subconscious mind, you're dead.
No, well,
you know, you see what I'm saying? Like you sit there. Will you ever see Chris Gordon again? No, I will never physically see him ever again.
right.
To me, that's death.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I've had people I work with like retire, and I was friendly with them at work, but I don't have their phone number and I don't know where they live and stuff like that. And now that person gone, they're no longer at work anymore. To me, that person's dead. You know, I wonder how they're doing. They could be doing great. They could have won the lottery, or he could have got hit by a bus. I have no fucking clue.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I guess it's the unknown. That's
it is.
Fear is the unknown.
It's an unknown thing. And I think for me, it's not so much the loneliness of it, but it's like the anxiety of saying, I should have said this. I should have done that.
Well, that's really what it is. I mean, for me, it is like that's regret.
It's regret,
and regret is probably my biggest fear. If I had a fear, it would be regret. You know, I mean, that's why having now that I'm married to my wife, who we met back in '91, and I let 25 years go before I reconnected with her. I mean, in a lot of ways, I feel redemption because I've been given that chance to not regret.
Right.
But there's still moments where I sit there and go, man, what was I thinking? I should have just married her in 1991.
Right.
Yeah. Why?
Well, I mean, at least in that chance, you're married to her now. So it's like,
exactly. And that's what I say.
And you gained experience between 91 and now.
Well, yeah, we both have the T-shirts. We've both been to the circus.
Both have the T-shirts. Right. Exactly.
We got it.
But now, are there people maybe that you are no longer friends with that you no longer talk to, and you're like, oh, I'll never see that person. I'll never see that person ever again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's
especially what we used to call each other road dogs. The guys I toured with. That I'll never see these guys again.
Right.
And some of the most craziest memories with these guys, and it's like, they're it's just like it's a part of me.
And imagine that my brain comprehends it as death.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you die, I'm gonna mourn you, and I'm gonna feel bad, and I'm gonna think of you, that type of thing, like anybody would.
Right.
But the fact that, like, if I could sit there and say, you say, hey, how about Dan? How about this person? Boom.
Right.
Yeah, I haven't talked to that person in 6 years. We are no longer friends anymore, and I will never see that person ever again.
Right.
Physically in my lifetime. When I die, hopefully 100 years old, or something like that, I will be able to say then I never saw that person ever again. That to me is death.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's not a scary thing, but I think it's a more of an unsettling thing. You know what I mean? In other words, like, and once again, it brings up regret, and it brings up this and that. And, do you feel that way about everybody, even the people you don't like? Probably no, you don't.
Right.
But in the sense of, that's a shame. I'm the kind of person that looks at my life as chapters in a book.
Right.
I envision in my head a bookshelf.
Yeah.
And here's book volume 1, volume 2, volume 3. And volume 2 is this time in my life.
Yeah.
And and sometimes you like to take that book out and you look at the pictures, that type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you go, oh, what a great time. Put that back.
Yep.
I'm over here. I'm writing this book right now,
Yeah.
type of thing.
Exactly.
And that's the kind of thing that I look at it. So time, in a sense, is my mortal enemy.
Yeah.
In a sense, because going back to the beginning of this episode, I like to revert back to my childhood in dreams. I like to revert back to a simpler time where I didn't feel
Right.
all this.
Yeah.
Well, back then all I did was I played, I watched TV, I had a loving family,
Yeah.
and everybody was there. And understand, with my family, I had a lot of old family. So my grandparents, their brothers and sisters, all old people. You know what I mean? I didn't have a lot of young cousins
Gotcha.
that came around. I had all old people. Now, 98% of them are gone. At this point. You know what I mean? That type of thing. So, so that was a big part of my life, and now that completely is gone, 100% gone. So it's that kind of thing for me that I think reverts me back in my dreams to go, oh, let's go back to Sam Goody.
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Let's go check out merry-go-round. I mean, let's go to math class. That type of thing where that's all I had to worry about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And in a day and age like we are now, we have a pandemic going on, and it's such a weird world right now. And politically, people are just so divided and are against each other. I've never seen a more angry world than right now. And if any time I want to revert back to 1986, it's right now. You know what I mean? It's like
I hear you. Yeah.
It's right this second. So,
yeah.
Do you think there are positives to nightmares?
Absolutely. They engage your thought process in the conscious world. And sometimes they're maybe in some ways maybe they are sending a message. It's very possible. That's what they're doing.
I mean, I personally think it is like training, in a sense, in the sense of making me stronger.
Yeah.
What scares me today will be behind me tomorrow.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Well, it's like facing your fears.
It really is. It really, really is. And you're forced to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. When you're having a nightmare, you're along for the ride. That's it. You're
Absolutely.
there. You didn't ask to go in there. No one goes to sleep saying, oh, I hope I get scared out of my fucking mind tonight. Nobody ever does that. You know what I mean? It's like, that's the scenario. And it's just really, really weird. And like I said, the level of fear is what I think I find the most amazing. Because like you said, I'm scared of clowns.
Right.
You're scared of loneliness. My fears are more visceral and monster-like. And I think it goes back to my brain being more childlike in a sense than anything else. Because that's a scary thing to a kid.
Yeah.
Versus, oh, I have anxiety about my speech tomorrow.
Right.
Oh, how scary is this that I forgot my notes?
Yeah.
Like if that was the for me, if that was like the apex of my nightmare, I'd wake up smiling every day.
Yeah,
what
right.
I mean? If that was it. Like, you forgot your notes. This fucking scarecrow's trying to eat my neck.
Yeah, right.
Like, what the hell?
Yeah, it's different for everybody. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll trade with you.
Yeah, right. Right on, man.
So,
awesome.
What a great day. And like I said, it's one of those things where it's a topic that can go on and on. I think if you have nightmares, the best thing I could do is try and remember everything you can about it.
Yeah.
But there's always a message.
Yeah.
I think in every dream we have, there's always a message. It's your brain interpreting something going on.
Yeah.
So, any final thoughts from you?
No, all I would say is, I would document them, if you can.
And if you have vegetable dreams, for God's sakes, I hope they're Muppets.
Nice.
I really honestly do. Because it will make you feel 10 times better.
That's great. Awesome.
Well, what a great show today. I hope everybody likes it. Comment down below. Let us know what scares you. What nightmares have you had?
Yes, share your nightmares.
Do you have nightmares at all? Maybe you don't. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
that's the scary thing, that you're that much happier than everybody else.
Yeah, there you go.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, whatever. I envy you. Until next time, right here on the DJB Productions Network, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit the notification bell. And until next time, we'll see you right here on Bite Me.
See you later.